an incredibly consistent fusion rifle in PvP, and an alternative fire mode that turns it into a rocket launcher for PvE. Tessellation, the new exotic fusion rifle you get instantly for pre-ordering Destiny 2 The Final Shape, is the first exotic fusion I can actually see myself using over other legendary fusion rifles. Every other exotic fusion rifle they brought to Destiny 2 doesn't exactly feel like a fusion rifle. They all have a gimmick or specific playstyle they require to be successful with them, but Tessellation is the opposite. It bends to your subclass, works excellent as just a normal fusion rifle, and then has these exotic features to push it beyond. Let's start with the stats, push into exotic features and how to use them, and then end with some incredible subclass and exotic armor synergy. Tessellation is built like an adaptive frame fusion rifle, and that's a good word to use for it because while it goes in the energy slot, it actually takes the energy type of whatever subclass you're running. That includes Strand and Stasis. So for the first time ever, without using the Osmosis perk, you can run a triple element loadout of all Strand or all Stasis weapons. This is a big deal because you don't have to choose what Siphon, Dexterity, Targeting, Scavenger, or Surge mods you want to focus on. You can just make them all Strand or all Stasis if you run one of those subclasses. Even outside the triple element loadouts, it's nice to have Tessellation bend to your subclass synergy. Say you like running Arc, and you want the fusion to synergize with your build for being amplified. Maybe you love volatile rounds and you just wanted the fusion to be void. It can be anything you want it to be. I've got a lot more to say about the build crafting options that open up with exotic armor, but back to Tessellation being an adaptive frame fusion. Adaptives are my favorite fusions in the game. Burden of Guilt, Pressurized Precision, and Tachyon Force. They sit just below Rapids in speed, but pack nearly the punch of a precision frame like Main Ingredient or Epicurean. Tessellation fires 7 bolts a burst, and each bolt does 38.57 damage each in PvP, which means it requires 5 to 6 bolts to land depending on your opponent's resilient level. I'll come back to PvE, but for feel and stats, I'm going to focus on PvP. This fusion feels very easy to use. I think the high stability stat probably has a lot to do with that, but it feels even more sticky than the aim assist stat would lead you to believe. I went back and forth between some other solid fusion rifles, and Tessellation just felt so consistent at landing those bolts. When I interviewed Mercules on Destiny Massive Breakdowns, he confirmed that exotic weapons sometimes have tuning behind the scenes to make them feel more solid, and I think something like that might be going on here because it feels really easy to use within its range. Now, that is the weakness here, the range stat. I wouldn't call it bad, but 51 range is about 10 stat points less than I'm comfortable with it being on other fusions in the archetype. All fusions got a slight range nerf this season though, so it didn't feel that different jumping around between my various god rolls. That said, with the new changes, it's very obvious when you're out of range because you can watch your damage fall off a cliff to 20 damage a bolt, which will not get you those one burst eliminations. So stats wise, a solid fusion, but let's move into the exotic part because it's pretty crazy. To start, you hold reload to eat your grenade. Important to note, you don't hold your grenade to load, as I frequently did to my own demise. You hold reload, and it takes your grenade and loads one fusion rocket into your magazine. I say fusion rocket because it kind of operates like one. You still have to charge it to fire, but when you fire, it is one slow moving projectile that does massive explosion damage along with direct impact from the projectile. It's like a nuke in PvE, dealing nearly 10,000 more damage than this blowout adaptive rocket launcher at base on this legendary mission boss. It's nearly the amount of a honed edge times 4 precision shot, only 1,000 damage less, but this fusion rocket only takes 1 shot of your special ammo. I heard some rumors that it does a different amount of damage depending on the energy element you have applied. This isn't true. It will do the same huge chunk of damage no matter what subclass you're on. Now, that huge chunk of damage comes at a cost. 1, it's not an instant connect damage like your usual fusion shot. You still have to charge the fusion, but the shot is a projectile that you have to make sure hits your target directly because 2, it takes a moment of time to load, and it eats your grenade that you could have used all on its own. This is where it gets tricky, and where its use to you will depend on what you're running and the activity you're playing. First off, the when to use it will be grounded more in ad control and brief periods of boss damage where the window is small. What's great about the alt fire for this is that you can eat the grenade at any point. and keep it stowed as you swap weapons and do other things. Then when you're ready for a quick burst of damage, you can whip out Tessellation, fire the fusion rocket, and go back to whatever else you were using. When you eat your grenade early on, your grenade regeneration starts right away as well, so you might even have another grenade ready by the time you use the fusion rocket shot. Alternatively, you can run a grenade heavy build like Hunter Double Strand Grapple, Titan Armamentarium, or Warlock Starfire Protocol, and have this fusion rocket ready to be activated pretty much whenever you need it. Let's circle back to that in a moment because I'm sure some of you are wondering what this alt fire is like in PvP. It's honestly pretty balanced. It does one-shot on direct impact thanks to the extra damage from the projectile impact, but it's a slow-moving projectile that is very difficult to direct hit from a distance. Plus, the splash damage on any shot that isn't a direct hit will only do a max of like 166 damage. Even with Radiant and Surge mods added in, I don't think anyone has to worry about someone causing chaos in the Crucible with it. You'd have to have up to a 20% buff going before the splash damage would one-shot in PvP, so unless they gave the Catalyst Harmony, we should be good. Now that doesn't mean it can't have a place in PvP if you use it right. 166 damage is a big chunk of splash damage you can aim precisely at a specific location for cleanup shots or starting an engagement around a corner. Especially if you're using a build that doesn't have a damage dealing grenade like heal nades or a grapple. You can use this 166 splash damage to avoid risk if you play it smart. It's just got to be very, very intentional. This ain't no Jotun. Speaking of, there are a ton of downsides to using the alt fire in PvP. First, you lose your grenade. I lean on my scatter grenades for fast cleanups in situations where this alt fire would not do near as much damage. Second, it requires a lot of time or setup. You have to take a second to eat the grenade, and then you still have to charge the fusion to fire the fusion rocket just like a normal fusion shot. Which leads me to my third con, and that's that the fusion is great in PvP in its normal firing modes, so why swap it up? The alt fire mode just ends up having a lot of pros and cons in PvP. Okay, let's jump back to the exotic armor and subclass synergy here because it's a massive strength in both PvP and PvE. In PvE, having a triple strand weapon build that takes advantage of this season's artifact mods to create tangles is crazy good. Combine that with fragments from woven mail and unraveling rounds on your strand weapons, and now every weapon you swap to has a ton of extra DPS pouring out of it. The alt fire fusion rocket also takes on whatever element effect you have applied, so if you're running something like Gerfalcons, you can add volatile rounds to the big fusion nuke to keep the damage spreading out after that one shot. Many exotic armor pieces have been revamped this season to include a weapon surge ×4 buff for various actions, while you have a matching element type weapon, which is a higher 25% buff that you can't obtain with normal surge mods. In PvP, these buffs can bring you to a 5-bolt elimination no matter what the opponent's resilience level is, and Tessellation will bend to the element type you need no matter what subclass you're running. For Hunter, Foe Tracer now gives that surge ×4 buff when an enemy is damaged at all by an ability, so I can lay down my smoke trap and get that surge ×4 going as soon as someone touches it. You can immediately activate this buff on Stasis with Mask of Baccharis, and other classes have Doomfang Pauldron, Eternal Warrior, Icefall Mantle, Sanguine Alchemy, and Mantle of Battle Harmony that all have similar ways to add that strong surge buff on as well. Now, there is no catalyst available in-game for Tessellation yet, but it is in the database, and I've got some big hopes for what could come with it. Outside of some massive switch up, here are some things I'd hope for. 1. The Two-Tailed Fox treatment, where the alternative fire shot applies an elemental verb for whatever subclass the weapon is taking from. So if it's Void, it gives it volatile rounds. If it's Arc, it jolts. Solar ignites, Strand severs to spin or unravel, and Stasis slow or freeze. I think that would be worth giving up your grenade for. I feel like it'd have to do the lesser of the effects, so for Stasis slow and Strand sever or unravel, because suspend or freeze would just be too much, particularly in PvP, as the alternative fire feels really balanced right now. The second thing they could do is add a perk that fits with both modes of Tessellation. I think High Impact Reserves would be the ultimate addition here, as High Impact Reserves fixes the bolts to eliminate in PvP to be 5 no matter what the opponent is running, and in PvE it would give a ton of extra damage to the alt fire mode if you use the fusion rocket on your last shot of the mag. I think that's a win-win for whichever way you use the fusion. One that would be hilarious for PvE specifically is if they would go the opposite direction and give it reservoir burst. Cause then if you use the alt fire when the mag was full, it would not only do 20% extra damage on the blast, but all targets you eliminated would blow up and do an additional blast as well. That sounds pretty awesome. I know we're just dreaming here, but lastly, I really hope the Catalyst boosts one of the stats that's lacking with the fusion. The range stat getting a bump would be the biggest win. That and the lack of high impact reserves are the only weaknesses with Tessellation compared to other legendary fusions. Only other thing I can think of right now is maybe getting the animation for the charge shot increase, just something to make the use of it seem more fluid. It is a very awesome animation, but every second you take to do it is either DPS you're missing out on or a moment of inaction in PvP. Final thoughts. This is the first fusion that truly feels exotic to me. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed that they've created a weapon that feels strong and unique enough to use in both PvE and PvP, all while keeping it from feeling broken or oppressive in either of those activities. I love the base feel of the fusion. It's sticky and satisfying to use as just a normal fusion rifle, and I love having a fusion that feels powerful in PvE. You know, one that isn't Riptide. I do think the cons are pretty strong. A lot of times it's just smarter to use my grenade rather than letting this weapon eat it, but on the flip side, I like that I can load it in the fusion early and save it for some quick DPS or ad clear when I need it. I also love that it gives me more DPS options to subclasses that don't have DPS grenade options like Strand. Tessellation just feels powerful and satisfying, and I can see myself sinking a lot of time into it throughout Season 22 and beyond. What do you think? Is Tessellation exotic enough to run over other legendaries? And the even bigger question, is it worth buying the pre-order for? Let me know in the comments below. This has been Lego LaFlash. Until next time, GG.